And so everybody I work with was very close to Frank. And there's not a day that goes by that...
Come on back.
All right.
We're getting close.
Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz were once the dynamic duo behind the resounding success of the reality TV show American Pickers. The show, which premiered in 2010 on History Channel, quickly captivated millions of viewers with its down-to-earth style, real-life content, and the chemistry between the two hosts.
Come on back.
All right.
We're getting close to the edge, close enough.
American Pickers was not just a journey of hunting for antiques. It also told the story of friendship, passion for history, and the desire to preserve American cultural heritage through old items. For over a decade, the image of Wolfe and Fritz traveling across the U.S. became a familiar symbol for television audiences. Mike Wolfe was seen as the strategic mastermind behind the show, the person who connected with clients, led negotiations, and built the brand direction. On the other hand, Frank Fritz brought a practical touch, with deep knowledge of machinery, license plates, and old household items. This contrast created a special appeal.
We don't think of him and talk about him, or what he would have done or what he would have enjoyed.
But behind the scenes, the relationship between the two began to show cracks. At first, their differences in work approach were limited to small disagreements. Wolfe focused on growing the brand, while Frank maintained the traditional spirit of a collector. Anyhow, as the show expanded and became commercially successful, Wolfe gradually took control of the entire content and image, becoming the sole face of the show. According to several internal sources, Wolfe frequently made decisions without consulting Frank, gradually pushing his partner out of the production process. The situation became more serious when Frank was forced to take a break due to health issues. He was diagnosed with heart disease, spinal problems, and later suffered a stroke. Since season 21, Frank had nearly disappeared from the show. While he publicly expressed support for his former colleague, Wolfe did not take clear steps to secure Frank's role or adjust the filming schedule. The show continued to be produced, but with Wolfe as the sole host. In later interviews, Frank revealed that he felt isolated and was no longer updated about the show. Wolfe stopped contacting him, and any changes had to be learned from outside sources. Some former associates confirmed that Wolfe had spoken negatively about Frank's work abilities and subtly used his health issues as a reason to exclude him from the show. These signs indicated that Frank's departure was not just due to personal issues, but a result of a deliberate process of exclusion. The conflict reached its peak when Wolfe registered the American Pickers brand under his own company name, releasing product lines tied to his personal image. While Wolfe expanded his business operations, Frank no longer had access to any profits from the brand he co-founded. Their relationship, once collaborative, shifted into a state of opposition, quietly but clearly. Frank's prolonged absence sparked a wave of reactions from fans. On social media and online forums, many viewers felt the show lost its inherent balance. Frank was not just a content supporter, but an integral part of what made the show's spirit. Nevertheless, the production team continued with a one-directional approach, with Wolfe as the absolute central figure. On the surface, this may have seemed like a strategic change, but in reality, it was a result of a long-standing power shift within the team, starting from the time Frank's health declined and he no longer had the ability to fight for his role. There were no public contradictions or legal disputes at the time, but what transpired was enough to lay the groundwork for a larger incident. When Frank Fritz passed away, initially believed to be due to health reasons, many saw it as the sad end of a beloved partnership. However, his death quickly became the starting point for an extended investigation, gradually exposing secrets that American Pickers had never aired on television. A death that raised many questions. Frank Fritz passed away one summer evening, in what seemed like an ordinary night. The initial report from the hospital stated that the cause was complications from a stroke, which matched his medical history. He had previously been diagnosed with heart and circulatory issues. The media and fans received the news as a sad loss, but not entirely surprising, especially given Frank's unstable health in his final years. As soon as the news spread, Mike Wolfe posted a tribute on social media, expressing his sorrow and appreciation for the years they had spent together. The post quickly spread, attracting hundreds of thousands of interactions from the loyal fan base. Anyhow, just a few days later, a detail in the autopsy report began to raise suspicions. Toxicology tests revealed unusually high levels of fentanyl in Frank's blood, a potent painkiller that is only prescribed under strict supervision in special cases. Frank's treating physician confirmed that fentanyl had never been prescribed during his treatment. The results led authorities to expand their investigation. At the scene, an unlabeled bottle of medication was found in Frank's nightstand drawer. Fingerprints on the bottle, when analyzed, matched Mike Wolfe's. Simultaneously, security camera data from the residential area recorded Wolfe's car appearing in front of Frank's house around 1 a.m., just 3 hours before the emergency call was made. The person who called 911 was Wolfe, who claimed he had visited Frank and found his friend lying motionless on the floor. Wolfe's initial statement seemed reasonable, with a voice in the call showing clear panic. But upon closer analysis, experts noticed several inconsistencies. Wolfe's description of the body's position, condition, and the timing of the emergency call did not fully align with the forensic data at the scene. This was the basis for shifting the investigation towards the possibility of external involvement. At the same time, the Digital Investigation Unit began collecting data from Wolfe's personal computer and phone. The search history revealed several unusual queries, such as simulate stroke symptoms, drug interactions causing death, and how long does fentanyl take to break down. These searches had been made over several weeks before Frank's death, raising suspicions about premeditation. Additionally, a former production staff member, who had stayed in contact with Frank, testified that Wolfe had actively sought out Frank in his final weeks, claiming he wanted to mend their relationship. Wolfe visited Frank's house several times and seemed overly concerned with medications, treatment plans, even offering assistance with caregiving. According to reports, Frank expressed discomfort, feeling controlled rather than helped. What initially seemed like goodwill, when pieced together with other evidence, began to show signs of a well-planned scheme. The combination of factors, fentanyl in Frank's blood, the bottle with Wolfe's fingerprints, unusual behavior in seeking Frank out, and the search history on personal devices, provided enough grounds for law enforcement to open a criminal case. Wolfe was immediately summoned and placed under special surveillance during the investigation. Public sentiment, which had been mourning a television icon, began to shift as this new information surfaced. The question of Mike Wolfe's true involvement in Frank Fritz's death was officially raised on many forums, marking the start of a deeper investigation and a groundbreaking case in American reality television. The benefits and conspiracy behind the scenes. As the official investigation shifted towards criminal prosecution, details regarding the relationship between Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz began to surface. The focus was no longer on the cause of death, but rather on the motive behind it. Authorities began to concentrate on financial signs, intellectual property rights, and the unusual legal changes that occurred just before Frank's death. According to records from a law office in Iowa, just 3 months before his passing, Frank Fritz signed a new will, leaving all of his assets, including real estate, antique collections, bank accounts, and image rights, to Mike Wolfe. The estimated value of these assets was around $6 million. What stood out was that the lawyer who had represented Frank in drafting the will passed away shortly thereafter. Frank's family, particularly his father, William Fritz, immediately filed a petition with the court to suspend the validity of the will, raising concerns about Frank's mental state and awareness at the time of signing. Only 2 days after Frank's death, Wolfe contacted 2 law firms to begin procedures for taking over the image rights and intellectual property related to American Pickers. He also sent people to access Frank's personal storage, believed to contain rare antique items that had never been seen in public. The speed and calculation of these actions led investigators to suspect that Wolfe had prepared for this moment in advance. Another financial detail further clarified the motive. A $5 million life insurance policy in Wolfe's name, with his company listed as the beneficiary, was signed shortly before Frank passed away. Additional financial transactions revealed that Wolfe had quietly transferred the intellectual property rights of the show to a series of shell companies he controlled, without informing production partners or the broadcasting channel. During a court-authorized search of his office, police discovered a safe hidden behind a bookshelf containing several unlabeled bottles of medication. One of them matched the fentanyl found in Frank's blood. Wolfe's lack of a valid prescription or medical justification for possessing this substance made the evidence significant. Furthermore, during the same search, authorities also seized a personal journal belonging to Wolfe, which contained several entries expressing negative feelings towards Frank, accompanied by language that suggested pressure and a desire to eliminate Frank's influence. One entry read, "He's just a burden now. I need to take back what's mine." Testimonies from former crew members of American Pickers further supported the investigation's direction. A production assistant confirmed that Frank had been actively removed from the shooting schedule by Wolfe, who claimed Frank was no longer fitting the image of the show. Wolfe also controlled the entire filming schedule, personally edited scripts, and had requested to reduce Frank's screen time in reruns. These actions, which spanned several years, were believed to have isolated Frank both professionally and mentally. Internal email data and text messages from Wolfe revealed that he had proposed measures to reposition the brand with a single central character, simultaneously avoiding mention of Frank's role in promotional campaigns. All these details, when pieced together, outlined a clear path, systematically removing Frank from the show while preparing the legal groundwork to inherit both the assets and the brand once his former partner was no longer present. The investigation concluded that Frank's death could not be separated from the context of the power and asset dispute between the two co-founders of the show. The financial motive, control over content, and the desire for absolute dominance led to a series of orchestrated actions that culminated in a tragic outcome. This was no longer a simple murder case, but had turned into a big, complex file. The trial and the collapse on television. The trial of Mike Wolfe attracted widespread attention from both the media and the international public, particularly from viewers who had followed American Pickers for years. At the Iowa State Courthouse, Wolfe was charged with first-degree murder, with aggravating factors related to intent, financial motive, and concealment of evidence. The trial lasted 6 weeks, calling over 30 witnesses and presenting a vast amount of documents, physical evidence, and digital data, which helped reconstruct the full scope of the case. The prosecution focused on 3 key points: the toxic substance in the victim's blood, signs of systematic preparation, and the defendant's reaction following the incident. The forensic pathologist confirmed that the fentanyl levels in Frank's body exceeded therapeutic limits and could not have come from typical usage. Frank's treating physician affirmed that fentanyl had never been prescribed, suggesting signs of poisoning. Physical evidence included the unlabeled bottle with Wolfe's fingerprints, matching the toxic substance found in the victim's body. Security camera footage captured Wolfe's car appearing at Frank's house on the night of the incident. Additionally, data from Wolfe's personal devices revealed several searches related to fentanyl, methods for simulating strokes, and the drug's decomposition time after death. These pieces of evidence clearly indicated premeditated actions in the weeks leading up to Frank's death. The prosecution also presented excerpts from Wolfe's personal journal, reflecting feelings of jealousy and a desire to remove Frank from the show. One entry read, "If I can't control everything, I'll lose it all. He's coming back, and I need to block that right from the start." Combined with financial documents, the life insurance policy, and corporate restructuring, the prosecution demonstrated that Wolfe stood to gain directly from Frank's death. Several witnesses who had worked on the production team confirmed that Wolfe had controlled the script, shooting schedule, and gradually diminished Frank's role. The lead production assistant testified that Frank was no longer consulted in the final stages of the show. Another employee claimed Wolfe had stated that he would completely replace Frank in future seasons. Danielle Colby, a longtime colleague, initially remained neutral but later agreed to testify. She recounted how Wolfe had threatened her when she raised questions about Frank's rights, and how she had discovered notes in Wolfe's office related to Frank's medication schedule, far beyond the scope of her work. The defense argued that Wolfe had been misrepresented by the media and had attempted to mend his relationship with Frank. The defense presented evidence of Wolfe publicly supporting Frank's return to the show and financially assisting him during his recovery. However, these arguments were quickly dismissed when Frank's physician confirmed that Frank had plans to return independently and was financially stable. Wolfe's handling of assets and access to Frank's antique collection, just 2 days after Frank's death, was deemed as having a lack of good intentions. The turning point came when the prosecution raised the $5 million life insurance policy. Wolfe suddenly exploded in anger, standing up and reacting violently, forcing security to intervene and briefly escort him out of the courtroom. Up until that point, the defendant had maintained a calm demeanor. This emotional outburst was seen by the jury as a pivotal moment that shifted their perception of Wolfe's true character. After 4 hours of deliberation, the court sentenced Mike Wolfe to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Before leaving the courtroom, he continued shouting, claiming he had been betrayed and his efforts had been stolen from him. The case ended in a tense atmosphere, marking one of the most shocking trials in the reality television industry in recent years. Frank's family, exhausted from the legal battle, and those who had worked with Wolfe chose to leave the courtroom in silence. The ruin after everything. The life sentence handed down to Mike Wolfe not only marked the end of the career of a figure once seen as an icon in the world of antique collecting, but also led to the complete collapse of the show American Pickers, a brand that once represented the spirit of preserving culture through old objects. From a program praised for its content value, American Pickers became the center of controversy surrounding professional ethics and the lack of transparency in the reality television industry. Immediately after the trial, History Channel announced it would stop airing all episodes featuring Wolfe and cease any related commercial activities. International partners gradually canceled their contracts, resulting in significant financial losses for the entire content distribution chain. For many viewers, this was a necessary move to uphold minimal ethical standards, but for the production team, it marked the end of a project that had spanned nearly 15 years. Danielle Colby, Wolfe and Frank's longtime colleague, also announced her departure from the television industry, stating that the incident had gone beyond the professional realm. Other former members chose to remain silent, while some publicly criticized Wolfe, claiming that he had destroyed the collective effort the show had built. Frank Fritz's family continued to pursue legal procedures to reclaim the rights to Frank's image, antiques, and personal assets that were used improperly after his death. Notably, Wolfe released memorial products such as t-shirts, mugs, and prints featuring Frank's image just days after the funeral. According to financial reports, the revenue generated exceeded $1 million, with most of the money transferred into Wolfe's personal account, without going through any charity or official memorial fund. The reaction from the viewing community was equally harsh. Many forums, once a place for antique enthusiasts to share their passion, were now flooded with criticism and calls to boycott Wolfe and all related products. For many, Wolfe not only betrayed Frank, but also betrayed the trust the public had placed in the show. Some in the public believed that the fault did not lie solely with the individual, but with the production system, which allowed Wolfe to hold too much power without proper oversight. Meanwhile, Frank Fritz's image was slowly reassessed in a more positive light. Despite his personal limitations, he was recognized as someone who lived true to his passion and remained honest with his audience. Numerous articles, videos, and memorial materials were produced after the trial to honor Frank's contributions to the spread of the antique collecting culture in America. Several organizations focused on collecting and preserving cultural heritage spoke out, calling on television production companies to reform content control and intellectual property ownership processes while establishing clearer ethical standards in the nonfiction television industry. The Mike Wolfe case thus became a warning to the entire industry, reminding everyone how easily the line between passion and ambition can be blurred when personal gain is placed above foundational values. While American Pickers may never return, the legacies that Frank helped preserve remain. His family is planning to catalog, classify, and display his collection at his hometown as a way to remember him. For many, Frank was the truest part of the show, a person who lived according to ideals, even though he was ultimately betrayed by the very environment he helped create. What do you think about the details of this case and the final verdict for Mike Wolfe? Share your thoughts with us in the comments after this video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on channel notifications to stay updated with our latest videos.